Let's talk about Pete Buttigieg, which is how I'm going to pronounce his name during this video, even though I'm not really sure how it is pronounced. I think a lot of people have trouble with it. He's from Indiana, actually fairly close to where I grew up on the border here in Kentucky, but Indiana will be going red. Now, how is he going to have a strategy going forward? How will he win? Because so far he seems like a nice guy, a little bit short on policy, and somewhat more wholesome than the Democratic field, which seems mostly corrupting career. He seems a little bit more legit. He's kind of like Beto, except for he's not a millionaire skateboardist with no plan. Let's see. Let's throw on those Democratic holds, just so we have an idea of what he's got going in. Okay, so like usual, he's got 188, less than 100 needed to get the presidency, and a lot of electoral votes out here. We can go on and add Colorado, even though it's donated its vote to the Federation, and Washington as well, even though most of the electors there are faithless. So you can't really depend on Washington, but he's probably going to do a lot better in this area, the Ohio Valley, which is very pro-Trump, at least in the last election, and most of my predictions have shown like Wisconsin going, Iowa going, but I think Buttigieg really kind of brings a different, I don't know if it's the mood, maybe it's just a feel, maybe it's subjective to me, but it does seem like he's being treated in a different way. Remember when Bernie Sanders met with Killer Mike and everybody thought, okay, that's a legit meeting, while Hillary was meeting with, all the celebrity African Americans, whereas it seemed at that point that Sanders had an en route to the legit people in a movement, and I think Buttigieg has similar kind of appeal. He's not your mainstream Democrat, but I've labeled Indiana here red because it's been red my entire life, and we'll go on and throw all those Republican holds on here now as well. Okay, everything else here now is a battleground, and you'll notice there's a lot more battlegrounds on this one than I've given previous people. You'll see Texas on here as well as Mississippi. I'll still say that this Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina contingent is going to be very difficult. You're really going to need to get an African American on the ticket to get Mississippi on board. And Georgia, I'm thinking about Metro Atlanta here. You really need to have somebody that's not a white man, to be honest. We can't just ignore what the Democrats have been really bought into with this identitarian politics of the coastal areas. It's just not going to extend into Georgia with a white guy. I don't see that happening. I don't want to be as crass as to say just having a white man on the ticket is going to return Iowa and Wisconsin to the Democrats, but he does seem to be cut from the Midwestern cloth. And I think that's going to give him an advantage. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but let's go on and say Iowa goes back to him just for the sake of argument now. And we'll see also how close it is. I don't think he'll have any problems getting Nevada back. It was somewhat close in 2016. And just the popularity of a president waning over an administration can be a problem when trying to get certain states back. And I don't think Trump's going to be able to pull off Nevada. We can also say the same thing about Michigan. Now, this one's fairly contentious. A lot of people I talk to in Michigan say it's very pro-Trump, and maybe it is. But he was only ahead 10,000 votes the last time out. So is Buttigieg from South Bend going to be able to have the activist base? I think he is. He's probably going to be able to pull out in Michigan, which is going to bring him awfully close, and there's still so much more on the map. So I think since we've been so generous to him thus far, let's talk about some stuff Trump might pick up. Maine's 2nd Congressional District is probably going to be permanently red. It's the rural district up here in the north, bordering Canada, a lot of woodland. I think Trump and Republicans just in general are going to be able to hold on to that for a while. Same too with Missouri. It's not traditionally a battleground anymore. It's been Republican safely for a while, but I think Buttigieg's going to give him a little bit of a run in Missouri this time. It might show up on a lot of election predictions going forward. I'm going to go on and say that Trump still has a hold on it. And this Nebraska district out here, I'm not sure if it's the 1st or 2nd congressional, but it's 2 electoral votes. I don't think Buttigieg's going to be able to get it this time. But that's something to look for in the future, because as states break down their votes in like Maine and Nebraska do, we'll see more competition in those states. So back in terms of giving Trump votes, let's go on and give Trump Texas. I don't see him Buttigieg making too big of an inroads here. I think his best strength is going to be here in the Ohio Valley. And let's talk about Ohio in particular. Like I said, I was born here in Kentucky, and I feel like we shared a common culture, southern Ohio, southern Illinois, and almost into Tennessee here too, of he's going to have an appeal. And people might bring up the gay thing, but I really don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I mean, it's always going to be an issue for some people, right? But I don't think he makes too much of it. I think the only people saying he does make much of it are the people upset that he talks about it at all. So with them, I'm not too worried. So his appeal to the Ohio Valley might extend into Ohio. But for now, let's go on and assume that because he's able to bring back Iowa, he's able to bring back Wisconsin as well. And this is also getting very close to 270. So it's kind of like how we were back in 2016 when Trump had to win all and Clinton just had to win one. But we know what Trump did. He ran the whole board. Now, we've talked a lot about Nova and Virginia Beach and Richmond turning extensively towards the Democrats in the last couple of years. Virginia Beach in particular, this was before the blackface scandal came out, but Bob Northern, the guy who's the current governor and said blackface, turned Virginia Beach, which was one of the most conservative voting blocks in the entire country. He led in Virginia Beach by like 70%. So it's interesting to see what's going on in Virginia while these bureaucrats retire along the coast. But for those reasons, I think Buttigieg's got a good hold on Virginia. Now, the remaining battleground states, I think he's going to be able to give Trump a pretty good run. He seems to have a little bit better insight. I think he's being underestimated at this point. Of course, he's bucked a little bit with the vice president because he feels like he has to come out on an issue and get some press, and so too he did. But let's really whittle this down now. We can say that in Arizona, Buttigieg will have some activist support in terms of the wall, border issues, immigration. I don't think the Democrats are going to get it this cycle. Give it one more cycle, and it might turn blue. It might give it to him. And keep in mind, any of these states might give it to him, except for New Hampshire. But it's not going to happen this time. I think Trump has a pretty strong position on the issue. He brought up the issue. And so we're not going to see movement in Arizona just yet. I think a lot of Republicans that look at New Hampshire are going to think, well, it's the Free State Project. We got a lot of conservatives up there, and Clinton just barely got over the line, like I said. But I think it's only because Clinton was on the ticket, really, that she did so poorly in New Hampshire. I think Buttigieg's going to have a much better shot, especially just given the demographics. And I don't need to continuously underline that because a lot of people can read so much into that. And the Democrats have made careers reading into demographics. Nevertheless, though, that'll bring him even closer, so it comes down to these four states. And all four went for Trump last time, so it's very possible they all go this time as well. But still, to have it this close, just based on just kind of what we've been talking about, Buttigieg coming in there as a new kind of Democrat, a little bit different than the rest of the pack, not nearly as antagonistic towards the entire country as, say, Warren is or Sanders. He doesn't seem to have any overt hate for the right, which is endearing almost. And I think the moderates in states like Florida and North Carolina are going to be considering that. Knock on wood that the market lasts until the 2020 election, but just assuming that it does, I just think people are going to be looking more at their bank accounts this election, and they think as much as they might hate Trump or dislike Trump or whatever it is, when you're doing well in your jobs and unemployment is down and the economy is booming and the president is actively advocating for the citizens of the country as opposed to a foreign union like the EU or something like that, or NATO, I think that's going to resonate more with the retired community in Florida who grew up long before, and of course this is true with every state, but they grew up long before the craziness of liberalism kind of descended into radicalism as it is now. And for those reasons, Trump's going to pull out Florida, bringing him up. And I've talked about the military families, Research Triangle, and Chapel Hill here as well. Obama wasn't able to win in 2012. I don't really think he's going to now, especially with all the things that Trump has done in terms of just building up the area from Wilmington all the way to Fort Bragg. So I think Trump's got North Carolina. In previous videos, we've talked about the Rust Belt penetration of just that old Union Democrat vote, in as much as that, like Biden in the eastern part of the state here, the more liberal part of the state, Philadelphia, Chester area, who gets support there, Scranton, of course. But that fades as you go further west into more rural communities, communities built around large suburbs where white women and working class people tend to trend conservative. So I'm wondering, how far is that going to extend? Of course, it's in Indiana where it's extremely rural, especially over here in the Terre Haute area. But going through, how much is Buttigieg's support going to be able to get in there? We know that a Republican can't win the White House without Ohio, or at least hasn't in 9 cycles or so. But let's say Trump is able to push through here, coming up from an activist base in West Virginia. I know that's stretching it, but rural upstate New York coming in as well. Let's say Trump's able to get Pennsylvania like he did last time. I hesitate to say it, and the prediction's probably going to be wrong. I think Buttigieg's going to be able to get Ohio. And for the purposes of this prediction, it looks like he wins 282 to 256. That's not going to please my subscribers, which tend to lean Republican. But look, guys, I try to be fair. This could be totally wrong. And as usual, leave a comment if I am. Check out this video and others on the 2020 playlist here on the FkeBld Network, and I'll be back going over every single candidate as we get closer and changing predictions as the news of the day dictates.